we should have just had more of the bootstrapping mindset, right? Just assuming that we're not going to get any, this money. We had a few people sort of promise, huge checks, right? And so we were saying, hey, like we were planning for a big launch, And I think you can start with the bootstrapping mindset and still, have a plan to scale, right?
Right.
I really think if you don't have a business model that you can't test at a micro level, then it's not going to work at scale either.
We're bad business friends.
All right, Jacob. I'm here with Jacob Pazos. I'm Scott Shin for the YouTube channel. It's called Bad Business Friends. Jacob, I started to tell you I was setting up my mic and all that, and I realized I had it all wrong because I went back and looked at our old videos and looked at how terrible the sound was, video quality and all that too. But I wanted to at least fix the sound quality, right? Because some people might just be listening and they don't really care what we look like. In fact, they'd probably rather not see what we look like. But did you know I was using my mic backwards this whole time? I finally I Googled, or I went on YouTube and typed in how to use your mic when on Zoom.
That's funny.
Dude, I had it backwards. And so it didn't pick up the sound properly, and sometimes it sounded muffled. And I didn't know exactly what gain did. Now I do. Apparently, you change your gain settings, for if you want it to pick up sounds that are more distant or in the background. If your gain's low, then you need to be close to the mic. And the proper way to do this is being a little bit closer with the gain low for the best quality. Anyway.
Yeah,
that's a little. I don't know what kind of mic you use, but that's a little. You probably already know this.
Right now, I don't have a mic. I have my computer, which, I got to get a mic soon.
Have you been using your computer speakers every?
Yeah, I'm buying some headphones soon to be able to at least have like AirPods or something.
Yeah, you just use the ones that come with your phone, dude. Those work great.
I'm having it with my phone.
What?
Yeah, I need to get some, but. Humble beginnings, I guess.
Anyway, today we're going to talk about our startup journey. We've been talking a lot about how we screwed up our friendship along the way, as well as the business. But I just wanted to go back, and this might be able to help some of our listeners on what their expectations might be and what our expectations were. So, my first question for both of us to reflect on is, what did we envision and what were our expectations before we launched? Mm-hmm. So do you remember early on we thought we were going to have this huge seed investment, and we started making a 20-page business plan, and
mm-hmm.
We spent all this time on all these slides so we could pitch it, and going back on that time, I realized we spent way too much time. I mean, not only did we spend too much time on making the business plan, we didn't really need it. I mean, I think most investors are looking for like a short pitch deck, right? With key points that they're looking for on how is this thing going to make money. And that's the bottom line. Right?
Yeah.
They don't care how cool your stuff is, right? You can just it should be inherent in the product itself, right? And we flew out to see some potential, CEOs even, and investors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a good learning experience, right? So I don't think I would throw it all away, but at the same time, what happened? It didn't materialize, right? So does it seem like it was a complete waste of time, all the stuff we did?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say nothing's a waste if you learn from it, right? But in regards to how we ended up going in the direction we went, it was a waste because we felt like we were committed to one avenue of launching. At some points, it felt like we kept trying to go down one avenue, then we'd restart, try another avenue, restart, and we just had this analysis of paralysis kind of situation. But I do think, it was a waste in terms of we thought we would go down this one way and went pretty far down the rabbit hole, and then said, okay, we're not going to go that way.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like it was a quick amount of time to make that decision.
I think we kind of drew this narrative in our mind that we'd go pitch this idea and get a ton of seed money to fund it and have a huge launch. And that guy kind of got ingrained in our minds because every time we talked to, like you talked to people you knew, they were like, I love this idea. When can I write a check? Right. It's sort of like
Right.
that. And I feel like people were kind of, it's easy for people to string you along and lead you on because, you know, they may genuinely like the idea and maybe, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know, things happen, right? I think our mindset was wrong personally. I think we should have just had more of the bootstrapping mindset, right? Just assuming that we're not going to get any, you know, this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think our time would have been better served if we just kind of approached that way from the get-go instead of like a year later, right? Because we waited a whole year. I remember in our previous episode, we talked about the analysis paralysis, or the paralysis of analysis rather. And I don't think we were over analyzing so much as waiting, because we had a few people sort of promise, you know, huge checks, right? And so we were saying, hey, like we were planning for a big launch, you know, and so that's why we had a different mindset. And I think if we would have just started with the mindset, and let's just say the money did show up, you know, because I think you can start with the bootstrapping mindset and still, you know, have a plan to scale, right?
Right.
All businesses, you know, you kind of, they have this goal in mind, right? And I really think if you don't have a business model that, you know, that you can't test in a micro level, like, then it's not going to work at scale either. Because I think there's some people who believe that, oh, this thing only works if, you know, at scale and not, you know, at a small level, right? So I don't think that's true, but you know, so I think we should have just gotten out of the ideation phase as soon as possible, because a lot of our assumptions, along with the seed money we're going to get, were kind of shattered, right? What were some other things that you thought, you know, our assumptions that were shattered? Do you remember?
To be honest, that's got to be the size of the company and what I thought it was going to do in the market. And not to say, I'm not saying this that it won't or couldn't. I think what I'm saying is at the time, how quickly I thought it would do something is the main issue. Like you said, everyone that we talked to was like, this is a great idea. We all knew we had a great idea, right? There was no question about that. We all thought that there was potential and it's going to have an impact in the market. I don't think there was any question about that this thing is going to be a great product, right? I think the issue was more so how quickly we thought that was going to happen. It felt like we were basically gearing up, like you were saying. I mean, it was like, and you've mentioned this before, years ago. It was like we were building a football stadium, you know, this $1 billion stadium, and we hadn't even marketed the fact that there's a team that's going to be playing there, right? And it's like you are so far ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
If you were on the outside looking in, you're like, hey, that's obvious. Like, why would you do that? But it's this hope and this feeling of entrepreneurship at the beginning where you're like, oh my gosh, I think that this is going to be a great product. Everyone that I'm pitching to is saying it's going to be. They're ready to write their checks to back it up, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh my gosh, this thing's going to be a $25 million company in the first 24 months, right?
Other than words and platitudes, I don't think we really tested.
Agreed. Yeah.
The sellability, because you know, people are saying it's a great product, but did anyone really put their money where their mouth was? Like,
right.
Until we put it out there for someone to give us money in exchange for the product, it was all theoretical, I think. And you know, but the thing is, they were, you know, kind of boosting our egos about it, and so we had this other mindset on it, and I think that sort of hurt us in the beginning, right? You know, That's fine because you hear a lot about these startups that are funded by VCs, and and I get it. There's some products that have to, before you can have your minimum viable product, it's going to take a long time in development, right? Especially in software and things like that. But we actually had a product fairly quickly, and so I think we had the ability to launch a lot earlier than we
Yeah.
did. But
Absolutely.
so that leads to another question. What do you think we could have executed on quicker at that time, looking back?
I think launching at the end of the day. I think setting up the businesses we delayed, and getting to sales we delayed. Um, there was the delays that created, or I should say the things that created the delays in that were of course the analyzing. Like I said, for context for anybody who may be listening, we had, we've mentioned before that it's the lens inside of the jewelry, right? We had already 3 iterations of the product,
Yeah.
we had options to go with.
Sure.
And it felt like we were like, okay, this week we're launching with this option. And literally 2 weeks later, as we're trying to develop the jewelry around or whatever, it's like, okay, no, actually, this is the better one to launch with. And we kept going back and forth. And I think it was because, as we talked about before, sometimes it's scary to start, but the analyzing stuff took so much time. And
Sure.
and also I think just living, and we mentioned this before too, living in this world of kind of hope versus reality. When it's your dream, you're kind of in the state of bliss. It's like, oh, this will be a $25 million company. But in reality, reality, your company is small and not started. So of course you're going to want to live in this world of bliss and dreaming more than this world of reality where it's like, no, we're worth nothing and we have to actually work on this thing to make it worth something.
So we were drawing up this huge thesis on why and how well this worked, but we really didn't test that thesis at all, right? Until far too late, I think. So would you say it's more important to start testing your thesis quickly, even if you don't have because I think most of us will have a level of discomfort no matter how far we are with our product development. But I think at a certain point, we know we have a minimum viable product, right?
Yeah.
And I think at that point, you should just pull the trigger, right? And start testing to see if you can sell this thing, right?
Look, it's a lot better to decide on things like patents, on strategy and marketing when you have money in your bank account and proof of your product, right? It's just like on the contrary, it's useless to worry about patents, strategy, and marketing when you haven't sold any products, right? And that seems simple, but a lot of people fall for it, and we did too.
We even in our business plan, we had our target audience and everything ready to go. I mean, we could have just started communicating with them for free on social media, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that was one of the first things we did. We did that probably a month before we even launched our website, didn't we? If I can recall. So. But I think if we would have just tested our business model as soon as we had the minimum viable product, that would have served us best. So we could have started a year earlier and been quicker to market. And for a lot of different reasons, being quick to market is a benefit.
Well, if I can touch on that real quick, we actually had, if you remember this, when we launched, there was another product that came out similar.
Yeah, pretty shortly after.
Right.
We had some customers.
So if we had that year, we would have been a year ahead of everyone worldwide, basically.
I don't know that. I don't really know about that because I think some of the products were just a copy of our product. So either way, it just would have come out shortly after. Because
that's fair.
Because from what I recall, some of these companies were just out of China, were kind of copying what we made, a cheaper version of it. Which, tell you the truth, I'm not, too worried because they still haven't been able to exactly duplicate our core product. The faceted gem and all that. We do have a better quality product, but but I've learned from customers that they're very forgiving, especially if you include them on the journey and communicate with them well. So you start communicating with your customers even before you can sell your product. Show them the product development cycle, show them the process you're taking to launch, and they'll come along with you for the ride, and you'll have your core customer base as soon as you start putting it out there. And even if it's not a perfect product, a lot of early adopters will try it out. You know, I remember some of our earliest customers, they would buy multiple, you know, versions of our product and the same product over and over, even if it wasn't perfect,
Yeah.
um, and there are those people out there that, and if you bring them on in the early phase of your business, they'll be your most loyal customer. That's what I learned. So and that's another reason why you should be, quickly putting it out there rather than just talking about it, with your partner or whoever. So, are there any other important lessons that you learned from that time that you would do differently today?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that always rings in my mind is what we've already kind of discussed, but it's just jump in, get started,
Yeah.
right? Just figure it out as you're going. Um, Even if you take one morning out of every week to reassess the failures you made, the lessons you can adjust on, and then keep on going every week and making it better. Um, but you're not going to have, I think that was the biggest thing, is you're not going to have everything figured out before you launch. There's no way possible, right? So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is I thought that we could figure a lot out and avoid problems, but in reality it is better to just, and I'm not, this is with business, right? It's not like with life, it's almost the opposite. In life you wish you had wisdom and could avoid people's other problems that they've been through. In business, a lot of times I think you just have to go through them and just get going and get moving. See what is the cheapest, quickest way that you can get a product out there and get
Yeah.
selling.
I think,
I
yeah,
think
that's,
um,
for me, the main points would be start with the, bootstrapping mindset where,
mm,
you're going to bill us yourself without very much money. I mean, if you have a ton of money, great, but hopefully that won't cause you to, I think people who start out with a lot of funds because they have a lot more room for error will try things and do things, less carefully, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sometimes it's nice.
yeah, but I think other than starting with the bootstrapping method in mind, start testing, sales right away. In fact, you can start selling before you even incorporate. Really, what's I've done this before. We had a business idea in the past. Don't know if you remember. I incorporated before we started anything, and then I decided, oh, we're going to scrap this and do revival jewelry, right? So that's another $500 I spent, right, for no reason. Um, but anyway, so how are you applying some of the lessons you've learned toward your current business? Are you
Yeah.
using any of that in your current venture?
Absolutely. I actually was just very aware when I started this, to take those lessons from revival and apply them to here, which I think was number one was patience, right? Uh, it's one of those things where it's the whole, you never have a harvest in the same season that you're planting your seeds, right?
Mhm.
You have to understand that it's a lot. Building something in life is a lot like trying to get a harvest going. You have to plant your seeds. For even before that, you have to get your soil ready, plant your seeds, right? Water them day after day, do all those things, care for them, and then after all that stuff, you harvest. And then even after the harvest, there's work to do, right? And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs want things that are turnkey, quick. I put money in, I get money out, and it's exponentially bigger. It just doesn't happen in life
Well,
like that often.
I think what you're saying is sort of foundational though to entrepreneurship. Not the that you get quick results or big results right away, but that entrepreneurship is really creating a system that you can scale, right? It's like creating a system that works, right, for whatever your product or service idea is, and then being able to grow that, right? Otherwise, I think there's a slight difference between entrepreneurship versus just running a small business, for lack of a better word, right? You could go open a sandwich shop down the street and
Right.
never have any plans to expand and just say, hey, I want to operate and make a living off of this one sandwich shop. And that's a different
Yeah.
mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset. So I think there is, some of that in terms of wanting to reach scale in an entrepreneur's mindset. But I mean, no, I'm not dissing one way or the other. I'm just pointing. But
The different attitudes, different perspectives, and different end goals, I think, right? I mean, franchises, for instance, you've got everything already laid out. You're
Yeah.
more so managing rather than leading and doing all that stuff. It's a whole different
Yeah.
mindset. And
so the entrepreneur is the one that created the system that
Yeah.
they can franchise, right? And so once you have that
Correct.
system,
Exactly.
you're in a good place. And I think what early on our mistake was, before we even had a system that worked, we wanted to be, the franchisor, right? Right out the
Yeah.
gate. I remember some of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Hopefully this can help someone out there that's spending too much time on trying to win investors and spending too much time on their business plan. I really think a lot of people spend way too much time on business plan, especially if you have a 20-page business plan, you've already spent too much time on that thing. I mean, unless the 20 pages comes from those like crazy templates you download. But
Honestly, like I think people need more deadlines when they're starting stuff. I think they need to go, okay, first week, Monday through Friday, we're gonna have a business plan, our vision, operating agreement, all those things, whatever it may be, because some people may be a solopreneur, some people may have partners involved like we did, right? Get all of that stuff done in the first 5 days, and that's it. Even if it takes you 5-6 hours a day after your full-time job to do, just get it done and get moving. I think the reason some of those things are important early on is I do think you guys want to all flow the same way and have the same end goal and those sorts of things. So yeah, it is hard to sometimes just jump in and get started, but all the things that are holding you back from jumping, just get them done with. Get them done in the first week and then start going for it.
So the moral of today's story is just get started.
Just do it.
We'll end with that, and well, that's already a registered
It's our-
trademark probably. So let's
An original phrase trademarked on this podcast.
all right, well, let's do it again. Actually, we'll probably talk on Friday to do our Friday follow-up, and talk to you again, Jacob.
You got
That's
it.
it for today. Please like and follow us.